Hello there, it's Paul here and welcome everyone. I've just recently bought myself one of the CNC laser stroke rotary engravers, and one of the things I want to do, which this has been a really steep learning curve, and I've just finished this afternoon, and I've made a batch of these little mini discs. Now I'll show a picture on the screen here from what I've been posting on social media as well with these, and it's just 3.6mm ply. So it's a nice hardwood. The laser side, nice and easy to do, just with the free software that comes with the thing that you can get on straight away. Now for the CNC sort of carving side, I've gone down probably the more complicated route, and I've gone to Fusion 360 because it's a free version for personal use, and it has everything in it. It's just a case that the learning curve, rather than being sort of like down here to get yourself going, is right up here. So it's took me quite a while just to figure out how to even just cut a circle out like that. I've got about 20 of them here, which are all now ready to use. And I thought, right, I'll do a little quick project to try and make use of one of these. And then I might also then take the project indoors and then do some form of laser work on it as well. On the lathe here I've got a piece of tulip wood which I've had sat on my shelf for ages, and I'm sure it's tulip wood anyway by the looks of it, and I've just put it on the worm screw chuck. It's a really small blank, 80mm wide by about 45mm high, which is 3 inches by 1 3/4, so I'm not doing anything big here. I'm going to try and do something a little bit different here. I'm going to probably make this like some form of a bowl, but with a fairly large rim around the top, and then see if I can then do something with the rim on the laser. Now all I've done is a fairly basic shape here. I'm gonna, when I turn this around, I'm going to curve it more on the top there and create a nice big lip on there, so it's going to be like a rimmed bowl. And so I've got my mortise in here for my smaller jaws on my O'Donnell jaws, so that's 30mm, and I've now got a 20mm hole in there as well. The important thing is obviously to try and keep that as tight as possible. I mean, I could have made that a little bit tighter, but this is the first one I've done. It goes in there okay. It's fairly well flush in there. All I'm going to do is use ordinary wood PVA glue, and I'm going to stick some actually in the base there to start with, and a little round the edge, and then just pop this in. I'm just going to give that a few minutes to go off, and then I'll get some sanding sealer on there, and then we can finish off certainly the bottom here. Now I've given this 2 coats of sanding sealer. The first one I knocked it back with 400 grit, second one just knocked it back with the 1000 grit Web. It's already had 1 coat of wood wax 22, and I've just put a second coat on here, so I'm now going to buff this off so that we can see what it's like. And I've got to say, really like that. The plywood gives a good contrast with the tulip wood. So I've hollowed the inside of this out, so we've got a nice big flat surface on the top here. Obviously it looks enormous, but it's a small bowl. You can see it's narrower than the width of my finger, and it's, I suppose, a bit like a cauldron really. I have sanded this all the way up to 400. And I've given it a coat of sanding sealer and then resanded it back with 400 grit again. So I've got a nice base now to try and do a little bit of laser work on the top here. So I'm going to take this in, and I'm going to have a think about what I can put on there. Here's the finished item. I went online, I found a free clip for the image that I wanted. I then had to resize it. If you look closely at the video below where the bowl sits, you'll see that they got the same image burnt on a piece of plywood. And the reason I wanted to do that first of all was, one, to make sure that the size was correct. Once I got that as well, I could then manually sort of fix this in the center of that so that I could get it as central as possible. Now this was only done by eye, so this is slightly off center, and you probably don't realize it too much just looking at it like that, but if you spin it on the lathe, then you can see it's probably about 1 millimeter off center, which I'm pretty pleased with because I've done this fully manually. But the whole point of this process was to show really that the discs being made, which was done fully on the actual CNC machine. So it was burnt first of all, and then they were cut out. Just bring them out into the shed, cut out all the tabs with a Stanley knife, sand them all back, and then show the process of them being fitted in the bottom of a piece of work. And the extra added bit of doing a burning on the top just to show what else can be done. Now the smaller machines like I've got, it's a 3018, and it's got a working area of 30 centimeters by 18 centimeters, or 300mm by 180mm. But the problem is that the actual Z-axis of how high you can raise it is only about 50mm. The laser is also a fixed focal length, and it is literally about 10 to 15mm that you've got to have it from the piece of work. Now you can't do that, for example, on the inside of a bowl, because the problem is that laser unit is probably about 25-30mm square, and then you've got obviously the laser point in the center of that, so you've got to allow room for that whole piece to work. Now the way a lot of these work is that they will usually start at a point at the bottom left of where your image is. It will already be at the right height, so therefore it will then move the actual table across. Now if, for example, I wanted to do the bottom of this bowl, even if I just wanted to do a very, very small piece in the middle, which, say there was enough room for the laser to move around, there's a good chance that it would catch on the sides. So you have to really do some forward planning on this. Doing this piece on the top has opened up lots and lots of thoughts and opportunities of what to do in the future. And the only problem that you'll have with this type of work as well is that if you apply a wax finish, which I've done on here, the wax does get caught up in the burning, and it's a very, very fine burning on here, and the depth is only probably about 0.1mm deep, but that's enough to catch the wax, and to clear that out properly is an awful lot of work. So you might also want to think that if you're going to be doing any burning, and the same goes if you do ordinary pyrography, is that you probably might want to think of either an oil or some form of a lacquer finish, a spray lacquer. Processing times on this for the little discs that I did on here, it takes about 1 minute 15 to do the burn on there, and that's just really with the settings I've got. I might be able to fine tune it a little bit to reduce it, but at 1 minute 15 per disc I thought was really, really good. The real length of time was the actual cutting out of the disc, and that with the CNC machine took probably about 5 minutes per disc, so it was quite a lot of time. Again, I might be able to fine tune that. Very, very much learning on this, and it's such a big steep learning curve. Now the other downside of obviously creating the little discs, I mean, I've done them on 3.6mm ply. You really need to do some form of a mortise in the bottom rather than a tenon, because obviously you need to get that disc in there, unless you're going to put it on after you've turned off a tenon on the base of a piece and then take out that hole to put the disc in. Now obviously the downside of that is then you've got to allow for that extra thickness in the base there. Now I've done a really shallow mortise on here. It's only probably about 1 to 2mm thick at the most, and that's ideal because it's such a small piece to hold in the jaws. But then I had to then go down to another 3mm to put the actual disc in, so therefore the base of my piece, it actually feels quite thin. What I've actually done on here, the base on here is actually probably around about 1 millimeter away from where that disc is, so you've just got to really be careful of what you do on there. Hopefully this has just given you some ideas and some insights of maybe what to do in the future, and maybe what you want to have a look at. Thanks a lot for watching.